YouTube. Today in the Naughty Librarian, I'm going over my best books of 2019. Now, these books might not all be 2019 releases, but these are books I read in 2019 that were just my faves. I tried to pick a wide variety of types of books, then I realized I mainly read things about magic and then smutty delights, sometimes combined. So I don't have a lot of options for variety, but I tried to pick a bunch of very different stories. These are all the ones that I kind of really like the best. These are ones I keep thinking about from time to time. So this is my top list, possibly subject to change if I decide to change my mind later. But for now, this is the best books of 2019. Before we get into the books though, I just want to give a quick shout out because this video is actually sponsored by Skillshare. It's 2020. I'm fully on board to say this is the year to explore new passions, deepen existing passions, and just like have fun learning something new. And a really good way of doing that is through Skillshare online classes. Since it's an online community, these classes are designed for real life. And you can take them at your own pace and your own time. So it's perfect to fit into a really busy schedule because you can kind of do it whenever you have the time to do it. There's so many awesome classes on there. There's even classes about improving your reading speed, which is pretty much essential for BookTube. I know so many of you guys are trying to read more books. There's also classes on creative writing, which is perfect because I know a lot of you out there are aspiring writers. Me personally, I checked out the Instagram-worthy photography class because I'm always looking for a way to step up my Bookstagram game. I want to be able to take better pictures. I have a link in the description below. Use it and you get 2 months of free premium membership. So if there's something you just really want to learn more about or explore more, use my link down below. You get 2 months to try it out, and if you like it, sign up for more and you can take even more classes. It's kind of a dope service. Alright, enough about Skillshare, let's get into my favorite books of 2019. First up on my list is The Wallflower Wager by Tessa Dare. Oh, Tessa Dare. Like, I had to put her on the list. I just had to because it's Tessa freaking Dare, okay? You guys know that I like her by now. This one is about Gabe and Penny, and it's so adorable. Basically, Penny, we had met her in other books, and she's kind of the weirdo vegetarian of the Regency era who loves animals and rescues them, and so she has this motley crew of rescue animals. Like, there's a sea otter, there's a Highland steer, and all these other motley animals, and they all have like strange personalities. There's a parrot, for example, that was raised in a brothel, so it says all kinds of crazy things. And then you have Gabe, who's very much a guy with a chip on his shoulder. He moves in next door to her, and he's basically kind of a Regency era house flipper. So he's trying to make a profit on this house because he kind of came from nothing, and now he's a self-made man. However, the thing is, it's really hard to sell a house when it's next door to a literal zoo of rescue animals that are all kinds of crazy ones. So he's like, lady, you gotta get rid of these animals. And she's like, heck no. Maybe if they get to be in loving homes, if you rehome them into loving families, okay. And so they embark on a mission to rehome all of these adorable animals. And of course, he's grumpy and she's kind of like very sweet and, you know, Dr. Doolittling herself all over town. But I really like their like relationship and the combo, because even though he's grumpy, he's never cruel, which is a very key factor in my liking of grumpy dudes, because I can put up with grumpy. Grumpy is forgivable. Cruel is not forgivable. And that's a good thing about Tessa Dare books. She never crosses the cruel line. It's always just grumps. Adorable grumps. It's just so good. It's just gosh darn delightful. So I recommend it highly. It's got cute animals, mischief, and, you know, smutty delights. It's got everything I could want in it. It should come as no surprise that Red, White, and Royal Blue by Katy McQuiston is definitely on my top list of 2019. You can see by my tabs how many times I had to tab something because I literally either laughed out loud or it was particularly like swoony. So yeah, this one got tabbed to shit. I really, really love this one. This is an romance, and it is involving the first son of the United States of America and the Prince of England. These two boys, they're enemies, they don't like each other, and then all of a sudden they kind of like each other, and then they're lovers. So it's an enemies to lovers, romance, but also crossing the political divide of the United States and England. Not that we're not allies, but you know what I mean. They're both very high-profile political figures two boys dating. It's going to be a scandal. However, it's particularly swoony. I really like their romance. I found it adorable. And it's so funny, like legitimately laugh out loud funny. Like honestly, all those yellow tabs are parts where I laughed out loud. Like sounds came out of my body. Like it wasn't just a smile, literal laughs. Hilarious book. And then the purples are the swoony parts, because there's a lot of swoony parts in here too that I was like, whoa! Like you get so excited and you root for this couple so gosh darn hard. So really, yeah, it's killing it. I just loved it so much. And this is a debut, and not all debuts knock it out of the park, but hot damn, this one knocked it out of the park. So I recommend it 2 pieces to everyone. You want something that's like swoony and legitimately hilarious, I recommend. Speaking of hilarious rom-coms, I also put Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey on this list. I absolutely loved this so much. Again, I tabbed quite a few things in here. It's just great. I had never read anything by Tessa Bailey before, and I had seen this going around Bookstagram for a bit, and I was like, okay, let's try this out. You know, worst comes to worst, it's like a 3-star read. And I was like immediately engrossed. It's so funny. It hooked me. It hooked me from chapter 1, page 1. Like it was immediately funny. The characters are immediately relatable in a way that they're not relatable at all, because this is about Georgie and Travis. See, Georgie is kind of has the baby child syndrome, so her family don't take her seriously, and also she's a child birthday party clown, so it's not a very serious profession. And then you have Travis, who's kind of like, he was a pro baseball player and then he hurt himself, so he doesn't play pro baseball anymore, but his reputation was for like just screwing anything that walked. So they're very opposite people. However, they kind of grew up together, so things kind of fall into place when he's a wallowing pity mess and she's like, stop being a pity mess, and throws Chinese food in his face, and then they're friends. I mean, what a way to start a friendship. And the thing I really, really enjoyed about this book, and their relationship in particular, is that thing I was talking about earlier with cruel or not, because as much of an asshole as Travis is, he's kind of a wallowing, self-pitying mess, and that does not equate to someone who's going to be saying nice things to other people. He's never cruel to Georgie. He's never cruel to her. He's genuinely, like, nice. He's, like, grumpy, and that's just his personality. But, like, if she's throwing up, like, a brunch party that no one showed up to, like, he still showed up because he said he was gonna go. So, like, yeah, you know, say what you want about him, but he's not a cruel person. He's just grumpy. And I kind of like grumps. It's a rom-com. It's got zany rom-com antics in here, but it's also freaking hilarious and also particularly smutty. Like, the smut in here is top-notch. I was impressed. It's like dirty sex, but like good dirty sex, if you get what I mean. Like, you'll be impressed if you don't mind like a helping of smut. Like, it's pretty smutty, but like good smutty. I recommend this one. It is laugh out loud funny, and also has lots of smutty delights. It had everything I wanted it to have. I had to put Bird Box by Josh Malerman on this list because it really surprised me so much. Like, I didn't really know what to expect out of this one, and I wanted to read it because I hadn't watched the movie yet. I went in kind of blank. Well, not blank. I know what it's about, like the people wearing blindfolds and stuff. So I was like, let's see what this is about. It's about 260 pages. It's real short, but hot damn was it good. Like, I read it all in one day, and I remember closing the book, and my first words out loud to no one was, fuck, that's good. So that's the best way to describe this book, is fuck, that's good. It's so well written, and the level of like dread and terror he's able to like squeeze out of every page is insane. Like, it is scary. This is a terrifying book, frankly. Like, the level of scares and terror in this, I wasn't necessarily expecting. Like, I've read some horror books before, but this one was like legit scary. Oh gosh, it's terrifying. And I was so excited because it's so well written. Like, the dread that he pulled out of the story is so good, which is weird to say that I was enjoying the dread, but like, it's so visceral to read because you feel like you're in it, and it's so bleak and horrifying, and it's so good. It's so immersive, basically, is what I'm trying to get at here, which is good and bad, because if you don't mind a scary book and being immersed in it, you're genuinely going to love this. However, if you're sensitive to scary stuff, I do not recommend. You are probably really going to hate this book because it's so scary, but so good. And it keeps asking this one moral question that I don't see asked very much in, apocalyptic books, which is, in the apocalypse that's full of monsters, what are you actually scared of? Are you scared of the monsters, or are you scared of the person you've become in the apocalypse? So, that's a good question to ask, and it is like a moral quandary to think about. And oh man, this is good. It's just really good. I recommend it. Also on the list, I went with Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas because I pretty much read the entire Throne of Glass series this year. But this was my favorite of the Throne of Glass series because I didn't want to put the whole thing in. I loved this one so much. There's so much to say about the series because it is like 8 books. But it's about Evelyn Galathinius, and she's coming to save the day. Evelyn is a princess who did not grow up as a princess because her family whole got murdered. And she kind of grew up on the streets being streetwise assassin. I liked her like cocky attitude. I just liked it. I know some people didn't like it that much, but I really liked it. I liked how clever the book was, where there's all of these scenes that seem kind of innocuous, and then at the end you're like, they all came together. And then my mind would explode. Because like, it was certain things, I was so wrapped up in just enjoying the story, I wasn't putting together these little puzzle pieces until the end when I realized it was a puzzle that I was reading the whole time and I didn't know. That could go either one of two ways. It can go very poorly where I'm just like, what is happening? Or it could go the way I felt it went, which is just like, hot damn, that was exciting! Overall, the series is very exciting. It's got swoons, it's got action, it's got sacrifice. It's just a great fantasy series in general. I super enjoy it. I love it. I feel like people who are Sarah J. Maas fans tend to like one series over the other. A lot of people like the ACOTAR series. For me, I'm a Throne of Glass girl through and through. So it's just like personal taste. It's a different feeling world and different feeling story in both books. So for me, Throne of Glass, and this one in particular, it like ripped my still beating heart out at times. Oh man, the end of this book, like just ugly cries, and then like heart out, just like tears, tears, tears. It was horrible. But like, that's why I like it so much, because it was such an intense ending that I was just like, This one stuck with me. I like this one the best out of the whole series. It's my favorite part of it. Next up is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This was a 2019 release, and it's a debut, and oh man, this has swept the internet. I feel it's a very hypey book, because so many people are reading it and like raving about it. And Serpent and Dove is like my jam. It is so good. It's so funny. It's like 1700s France, like fake France. And there's magic and witches and witch hunters. And there's this witch named Lou and a witch hunter named Reid. And through a crazy series of events, they wind up married to each other. How are these crazy kids gonna work it out? It's not really a zany rom-com as much as the premise sounds like one. If I'm being truly honest here, and I have to be somewhat critical, yeah, like the story isn't the most exciting thing I've ever read. It's kind of like we've seen it before, but it's written in such a way that it's like so charming and endearing, and in like a really snarky way. And it's hard to explain. It's kind of like the humor that you find in like Deadpool, if you get what I mean, where Deadpool is technically a love story, even though it's horribly violent and there's like elaborate curses. So it's kind of like that in a way. And I think if you're into that kind of humor, you're really, really gonna like this book. And I so rooted for Lou and Reid, because Lou is very much like a wild child witch who's just like walking around being crazy. And then you have Reid, who's very buttoned up Boy Scout, and then them together. It's like an odd couple situation, but you really root for it to work. And it goes through issues of like sexual agency and consent and all of that, and it's handled really well, so I liked all of that stuff. And I think it's really just kind of a vibe here. Like if you're into the humor of Deadpool, I think you're gonna like this, even though they're very different stories. It's kind of that vibe, you get what I mean? So if you want like a snarky, sarcastic story in fake, 1700s France with witches, this is the book for you. It's hard to describe, but it's really good. I really liked it. Next up, I have Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. This one, I feel like there should be more hype for. Like, it came out and then it kind of disappeared. But legitimately, it's really freaking good. This is perfect if you're a fan of Tomi Adeyemi and the Children of Blood and Bone series. It kind of has a similar world where it is about Orisha and it is based in like West African tradition. So if you're a fan of that series, you'll probably be a fan of this series. And the thing is, at least for me, because I've read both, I genuinely think Kingdom of Souls is the better book. I really think it is, and I feel like it should have way more hype around it. It's really legitimately very good. This world is really interesting because it's very lushly detailed and the magic feels dangerous because magic has a cost in here. People either have magic or they don't, but people without magic can sacrifice things to get it. So it has a cost. Sometimes you're willing to pay that cost and other times you're not. So it really depends on a lot of things here. So this magic system is dangerous. And we're following Ara, who is the daughter of witch doctors, so she should have magic, but it never really manifests. And since she's trying her best to like prevent the apocalypse, she has to keep sacrificing things for magic. So it's a very dangerous position she's in. And that's kind of why I really liked it. The magic feels so wild and dangerous. And also there's demon kings and crazy witch doctors and like this lush magical world that's so expansive. It has so much stuff going on that frankly I think this should have been 2 books. It's a very good as 1 book, but like it really could have been 2 great books. So I don't know, that's just my personal opinion. I feel like this is book 1 and 2 made into 1 book, but it should have been book 1 and 2. It has a lot of story going on. But it's so lushly written. It's so fascinating, and it's just really, really good. Oh man, I recommend trying it out, especially if you like Children of Blood and Bone. Read this, and I think this is honestly the better, more compelling story. So come at me. That's what I think, at least. So I recommend Kingdom of Souls. Also on my list is There Will Come a Darkness by Katy Rosepool. Now, I read this and I could not shut up about it to anybody who would listen to me. It was one of those books from sentence 1 on page 1 where you're like, hot damn, this is a good book. Those rare moments where sentence 1 is so fucking good that you're just like, damn, I want to read this. This is an epic fantasy. It is told from 5 different perspectives. Basic gist is that there is this prophecy. The age of darkness is going to come and it's going to kill everybody. And so you're following these 5 people who all have a part in this prophecy, and how is it going to work out in the end? It can either work out positively, or it can work out very poorly. They don't know yet. So the prophecy is unfinished, so it literally just says the age of darkness is coming, watch out! But it doesn't say how to prevent it, how to survive it, how to do anything. So it's an unfinished prophecy, and they're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And we're following these 5 very different characters. Like there's the Pale Hand of Death, who's an assassin. There's a revenant in here, and there is a exiled prince. There is a guy who's basically like a warrior monk, and then you have a streetwise hustler. So you have 5 very different characters and lots of different stories going on that aren't necessarily intertwined, but they all are pointing in the same direction. And ooh, like I love this world. The fantasy is so rich. I love the prophecy elements. It's so well written, like legitimately. Page 1, sentence 1, hooked. Like it's so good. I cannot wait for the sequel, which I do believe comes out in 2020. This is coming out later this year. I'm very excited for it. I've already pre-ordered. I need it now, but this one is so good. I loved it so intensely. And it is 5 perspectives, so just go in knowing there's a lot of story to cover here, but it's really good. They're 5 really good stories, and they're all kind of like intertwining in different ways, but hot damn, they're good. Also on my list is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is one that's kind of out of my comfort zone because this is literary fiction, historical literary fiction, and I don't really read a lot of that. However, I had heard such like wild praise about it that I wanted to try it out, and I read it, and oh my goodness gracious, it is so good. I can't even begin to like express how good it is. This mainly takes place in like old era Hollywood, so like the 50s, the 60s. It goes up to present day at parts, but it's mainly taking place in the past. And you're following Evelyn Hugo, who is kind of like a Liz Taylor figure. And a lot of her story is known because she had 7 husbands. So she has this very scandalous, dramatic life, and we're kind of going behind the scenes of that. So we get into some deep, emotional, murky waters here, and the things Evelyn has had to do to get the life that she has now are crazy. Like the drive and the determination and the willingness to subject herself to things that aren't necessarily morally great are intense. And it's basically kind of a parable a bit about what are you willing to do to get what you want. And Evelyn does a lot of stuff. She is Slytherin AF, and I appreciate her. Like, the things she does to get where she is. It's kind of a Hollywood story, and also FF romance, surprisingly. So, basically, this is, like, kind of page 1 of the book. It's not really a surprise. She's like, yes, everyone's fascinated with my 7 husbands, but I think the thing they're gonna find the most interesting is my wife. So Evelyn was actually bisexual, and she was madly in love with a woman. So, you know, 50s and 60s Hollywood was frowned upon. So you have all that going on in the background, and then you have all the craziness of Hollywood and the movie industry and her crazy husbands, and then this woman, and it's bonkers, and it's so juicy and good, and like the writing is so elegant, and like honestly just like ugly crying at points, and then laughing so hard at points. It's like an emotional roller coaster, and it's so good. It's legitimately so good. It's so well written. I loved it to bits. So I do recommend, especially if you maybe read more fantasy books and you don't actually read a lot of like literary fiction, this is one for you. This list wouldn't be complete if I didn't put 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo on it. I finally read it this year, and hot damn was this good immediately too. It's one of those books that like chapter 1, even though chapter 1 in this book really doesn't have anything to do with anything else that happens in the story, it's still pretty good. It's like these characters are so vivid and complex, and honestly this series has given me one of my all-time favorite literary figures, Kaz Brekker. 6 of Crows, in its heart, is a heist story. They assemble a crew of miscreants and they have to go to this place that is literally impregnable and break someone out of prison. So they're doing some crazy stuff here. And I kind of really love crime caper adventures because they're usually very clever. There's all these clues and tiny bits of information that you don't really pay attention to until it's the big aha moment and you're like, oh my gosh, they're all so smart. And also this world has magic in it, so not only do you have like a crime caper with Kaz Brekker, who frankly is going to conquer the world. He's like a criminal mastermind. You have that going on, and then you also have magic in this world, and there's this whole other story going on that's like a deeper world-changing events type of magic situation. Then you have the crime elements. I love Kaz Brekker. I love all of the characters of this series so intensely. I mean, it's been out for a while. It's everywhere. If you go on Bookstagram, it's everywhere. I feel like the characters are everywhere. People know a little bit about this story. But it's so good. It's so good. I can't like put into words how freaking good it is, because like literally I have cosplayed as Kaz Brekker multiple times this year. So considering I was willing to cosplay just to like remind myself about how much I love this series and I love that character so much, it has to be on my list of favorite books of 2019, possibly favorite books of all time. It's so good. I don't really want to get into any elements of the story more so than I did because it's so twisty and turny and complex and the characters are great that I don't want to give anything away, but it's so good. So good. I really recommend. Last book I'm going to talk about in this video is also by Leigh Bardugo, and that is Ninth House. And this is her first adult book. The subject matter here is incredibly dark and scary, and it has ghosts and arcane magic, and it has Yale as the backdrop. So basically at Yale there are these secret societies, and in these secret societies they actually perform arcane magic. And then you have the Ninth House, who is a 9th secret society, and their job is to basically be wizard cops. They have to go around and be like, hey, stop what you're doing, you numbskull, you're gonna raise a horde of zombies. Damn it. So it's basically their job to police the other houses and make sure no one is doing some crazy shit outside of the regular crazy shit they already do. And we're following Alex in this, and she has had a rough past, and she's basically recruited to be in the Ninth House because she has the ability to see ghosts. And there's a lot of ghosts around, and these aren't like spooky ghosts. These are legit scary can hurt you ghosts. And it goes more into that arcane magic thing, and also Alex is particularly morally gray because she had such a rough upbringing, and being a little kid who sees ghosts and not being able to tell anybody about the horrible things that have happened to you would put anybody in a bad mind state. And Alex in particular is a truly morally gray character. She has certain things that are definitely always evil and always good, but everything else, it kind of depends on the situation. So she's willing to do some questionable things to get the results she wants, because the results she wants are good. So what she has to do to get them is a question of, can I get away with that? So she is a great morally gray character. This is very dark though. There are trigger warnings I do recommend looking up if you're sensitive. For example, there's a lot of issues with sexual assault in here, so I'm just going to point that out, that it is rough at points. But I've read so many books by Leigh Bardugo that I kind of trust her as an author to not write something in a way that it would just be sensationalizing those experiences. I feel like she's going to write it with a certain sensitivity because I trust her as an author, and that does come through. I don't feel like these situations are being sensationalized. They're being shown as being horrible, but you don't have to have the whole horrible act on the page in excruciating detail for everyone to know it's horrible. That's kind of like my caveat here. So I do trust her and her writing, and it comes across that way, and I loved it. It's so dangerous feeling. Like, it's like an arcane magic that's dangerous, and it's really good. It's a murder mystery a bit. It has like crazy ghosts and demons and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I can't recommend reading it enough, especially if you do like horror and you like adult books and you like magic. You're probably really, really gonna like this one, so I do recommend. Alright, so there were a lot of books I could have put on my 2019 list, like so many books, but I had to cut it at some point, you know what I mean? I can't just say every book I liked, because this video would be hours long. Were there other books that were really close to making this list? Yeah, there were, but the key factor for me is like, do I keep thinking about these stories? Do I keep telling people to read these stories constantly? And if that is the case, then that means these are the books I really need to put on my list. Let me know in a comment down below, are any of the books I picked on your list as well as the best books of 2019? And if not, what was your favorite book of 2019? Let me know in a comment down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!